all other disabilities. They believe that if you have a physical disability like your soul walking like a penguin, to them they also believe there's an inherent form of intellectual and mental disability in that kind of a situation. For 2 years I did a program on Power FM mainstreaming issues affecting people with disabilities. And I hosted all these famous people with disabilities who have made it. And basically the whole idea was to get rid of the shame mentality when people look at people with disabilities. My takeaway from there came from Baksim Langeni, who shared his journey, and he said he went to Gala Rockers and he told them that he wanted to record an album. They introduced him to an in-house producer, and he said the same thing to the producer: I want to cut an album. The first question from the producer was, "You are blind?" He said, "Yes, I'm blind. I don't sing by winking my eyes. I sing with my mouth." And the reality is that the producer felt offended. They did record him, and history tells us that that producer died a very bitter man, regretting why he rejected him. I'll tell you about my own lived experience. I collapsed in 2016, so I'm not 40 years like you. I collapsed in 2016 in November, blacked out for 3 to 5 minutes. When I woke up, I was fully paralyzed from here down. Then I was taken to hospital. The diagnosis came after 3 weeks, saying it's Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. It's a very rare autoimmune disorder. It affects about 150,000 people across the world. So I'm the lucky one in South Africa to get it. And because it's a very small market, the pharmaceutical industry isn't investing in its process. So the only remedy right now is physiotherapy, because your nerves degenerate. So the only way is to go to a rehabilitation hospital, they stretch you so that they reactivate your nerves. Now when I was in hospital, my wife then said to this best friend of mine that we grew up with, to say, you should go visit Saul. He said, yeah, I will go. And then he said, how is he mentally? And she said, no, he's okay. No, he's just normal. For 6 months, the guy kept on asking the question, how is he mentally? On the 7th month, his wife decided to come to hospital to visit me. While she was there, she called him to say, you know what, I realized that we will never visit Saul until he's discharged. So I'm here with him. Are you joining us? I was at the Tshwane Rehabilitation Hospital. You are supposed to drive from Johannesburg to come join us. Then I remembered that he was worried about my mental faculty. As he hopped in, then I went like, and I looked at him, his that complexion turning darker or blue, you know? And then I thought, Comrade, I remember you. And yeah, his eyes were blown out. Then ultimately I laughed at him. I said, for sake, excuse my French. So you can't do that to me. I said, yeah, I do. I heard that you were saying that I'm not okay upstairs. So I just wanted to prove that to you. I'm fast forwarding. Then this told me that I needed to share my journey. And on the 7th month, I recovered my mobility on the sand, and I started writing about my journey, and that journey resulted in this book. Sound and Fury, The Chronicles of Healing. Sound and Fury is Shakespearean. It comes from Macbeth, where it says, life is but a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. For me, basically, it says, your next 2 seconds unguaranteed. Because there I went for lunch with my wife, and as we were walking to the car, I suddenly collapsed. And my entire world, to a large extent, collapsed that moment. Then I was discharged after a year. I spent 2 more years at home. And my employer, who is a state-owned entity, wasn't really convinced that I was okay. They were also worried about my mental ability to be able to serve as a group executive, the opposition I was in. Then I said to them, but I've written a book, we published it, we launched it, it did very well. And the former President Kgalema Motlanthe wrote the foreword to this book. They were still not convinced. I then decided to develop a PhD proposal. I sent it to 3 universities. The University of Northampton in the UK came back, invited me for an interview with 3 professors who were in the admission committee. I defended my proposal, then I was admitted to do a doctorate business. Don't clap because I dropped out. But basically, I then went to my colleagues to say, you morons, if 3 professors in the UK are saying I'm okay to be able to pursue a Doctor of Business Administration, who are you to say I'm not really, mentally competent to come back to my position? Okay, we packed that one. Another lived experience, my friend is Masingita Masunga. I think most of you know her. She's one of the advocates for mainstreaming issues affecting people with disabilities. Earlier this year, she says to me, some SABC program wants to interview her. Can they do it in my house? I said, no problem. So she came, the production crew came. I take it that they assumed it was Masingita's house. So they interviewed her, and later on she said, no, it would be nice if you also interview Brasol. Everyone calls me Brasol. My nieces and nephews call me Uncle Brasol because my mother used to say they should call me Uncle. So they say you have to interview Brasol so that he can also speak as a person with disability, how I impact on him. They said, excellent. Come join us, Brasol. I went, and then the guy who was interviewing Masingita calls one of the production crew members to come sit next to me. Then he says to me, Brasol, feel comfortable. Don't be scared, don't be nervous, don't be anxious at all. And if you are having a language problem, don't worry, she's here, she's going to interpret for you. Then I said, oh, okay, thank you. And she said comfortably. And then he said, okay, tell us about yourself and which school you went to and what is the highest standard you passed. I said, oh, okay, that's wonderful. My interpreter was there. And I then said, my latest qualification is Master of Science in Global Marketing from the University of Liverpool. Before that, it was Master of Arts in Dramatic Arts from Wits, which came after my honors degree in Dramatic Arts from Wits. That came before a postgraduate diploma in marketing from INM. Yeah, there's a junior degree I did, at the University of Liverpool. then it became tense. And the guy didn't even say bye-bye to me. It's fine. I'm saying this because most of you in here do not have disabilities. And I'm saying this to say to you, be careful how you perceive people with disabilities. Like I said earlier on, she shared with us 6 classifications, but to many ordinary people, the last 2, mental and intellectual disabilities, cut across all the other 4 disabilities, which is very, very unfortunate. On Sundays, I present a jazz program on High FM. It's a radio station owned by the Jewish community. And when every month I have a theme. So the theme for November was Disability Rights Awareness Month. And I then said to the listeners, I'm talking about my lived experience as a person with disability. Yeah. One of my listeners sent an email to say he doesn't sound disabled. Simply because they love what I do. And I've spoken about my physical disability, my movement is impaired. But to them, I don't know, because it's airwaves, I don't know how they were going to see my movement, my impaired movement, you know, because she said, yeah, I didn't sound disabled. Anyway, to make you laugh, many messages also come to say they never knew a black man could be that romantic. Anyway, just about laughs. So with it. But they are old Jewish studies in Norwood, yeah, all those areas. Don't worry that much about it. Now, empowerment is a two-way process. The company will come up with all these brilliant interventions to empower us as people with disabilities. But like that gentleman who said earlier on, I call him half Oscar Pistorius. Usually I have a friend at Bonaparte who lost both his legs, and I always say to him on February 14th, I call the wife to say, be careful, it's Valentine's Day. You know? Yeah, make sure that he's happy or just visit home. You know? But basically, he said, it is up to you as a person with disability to empower yourself. Medical science, oh, there he is, Oscar Pistorius. Yeah, your wife can be safe on February. So basically, medical science will make an intervention. Companies will make interventions, but they only contribute 50% towards your sanity. The other 50% is in here, in your heart. And then I go back to the issue of your personal brand identity. Your disability shouldn't define who you are. Friedrich Nietzsche talks about every object being a multiplicity of subjectivities. Yes, I'm talking to you, one, as a person with disability. 2, I'm black. 3, I'm African. 4, I'm South African. 5, I'm male. 6, I'm from a rural area. I grew up in Amaskral. Yes, I'm also a marketer. There are all these subjectivities. So don't allow only one element of the multiplicity of your identities to define who you are. You are all these things to everyone. And I do go back to the Tshwane Rehabilitation Hospital to speak to people with disabilities. And I always say to them, look, when we are here at the rehabilitation hospital, we all have disabilities. And we also boost each other's morale. I look at you and say, but her disabilities worse than mine. At least I can still walk like a penguin, you know, with her, you know. And when I was on a wheelchair, I never called it a wheelchair. This week it was a Ferrari, the next week it was a Lamborghini. I gave it all these beautiful names. And for me, that also came from in the 90s when African Americans invaded Hollywood. John Singleton came up with a movie called Boys and the Hood. And in that movie, there's a guy who is on a wheelchair and he lived a full life like all his friends. Suckerish like all of them, naughty like all of them. And for me, I said, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to embrace this Lamborghini or Ferrari, cars that I've never driven before, but God made an intervention, made it possible for me to, you know, to drive that Lamborghini or Ferrari. Now, that's the importance of you defining your own brand identity. To say, this is who I am and this is what I aspire to be. And once there's a positive vibe, trust me, the external world will also perceive you physically. When I made jokes about my disability on social media, one day my cousin came to me and said, thank you for making it easy for us to relate with you. Because they were all depressed when they had that suddenly, yeah, I collapsed, I'm paralyzed. And they look back at my life. Yeah, the truth is that I've done it all. Even if I was to die now, I'll die a happy person. I've done it all. I was a consul general in Italy for 4.5 years. When people ask me which countries have you been to, I say the question should be which countries you haven't been to, because I've been all over the world. At one stage I was the spokesperson for foreign affairs, so traveled all over the world with the president and the minister of international relations. So when they heard that, Saul's world has collapsed, they were worried to say, how do we relate with him? But guess what? One person that I still love even today is my uncle. Even when I was paralyzed and I was in hospital, he still sent me, please call me. Then I'll call him as nurse. Okay, going to my cell phone, buzz my uncle. He didn't say, now he's in hospital, he's broke. No. He still believes that I have data and airtime, I can call him back, okay? After this book, there are 2 more books which are in the market. One is called Deconstructing Brand Africa, a practitioner's perspective. I look at how do we rebrand Africa so that it's perceived positively as a viable destination for tourism, for investment, and also how do we package our made in Africa service and product brands in such a way that they access all the foreign markets. The new one, which is more exciting, was launched during the Joy of Jazz. It's a jazz photography and poetry book. We launched it during those 2 days. This one is full of pieces. The poetry is only 7 pages, so I'm now a sales guy. Also, Elizabeth, it's a very nice corporate gift, you know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, what a fulfilling morning, hey? I hope we leave empowered. I'm so grateful that my colleagues in HC actually came out. I'm disappointed that we didn't get as much positive feedback as we would have loved to. And I think when you name these events for what they are, it is assumed that they are for persons with disabilities. And we all have the responsibility to feel empowered and be empowered, because this is really about how do we interact, how do we respond as a business, and how do we position ourselves as a bank that cares. So those of us who are here, we carry a heavy responsibility to go back and spread the word that this is for everyone, those that are disabled and those that are not disabled, because one way or the other, directly or indirectly, we are affected or indirectly affected. I want to thank our speakers. I love the sense of humor. I must say I really enjoyed the sessions. The sense of humor that comes from the interaction, it makes it easy for us to relate to the subject and to interact with the subject. I don't know if there's any questions before we let go of the session and enjoy our popcorns and slush puppy. If there's any questions, the biggest thing that we are driving is that as an organization, we would not be able to reasonably accommodate if we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. So please, let's encourage our colleagues, those who have visible and invisible disabilities, to disclose so that we can cater for them. There is nothing that we can do if we don't know. And we are not just saying this from an employment equity perspective. It's because we've said that we are a bank that cares. And how do we care if we don't know? So thank you to you too, my brother, for actually sharing and disclosing today. Now we know not to make you run in the stairs, you know, would have better provision and reasonable accommodation in terms of lifts and any other pathways. Colleagues, that brings us to the end of the session today. Thank you so much for your time and attendance, and thank you to our guests. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here and visiting us. I hope you've got African bank accounts. Ne? Our branches are upstairs in case you don't. So yeah, thank you so much, colleagues. Appreciate it.